what I want to say is that it is to start practicing the future. And here I am quoting Tanya Bruguera. Um, and at the same time, it's also to take charge of our lives. Um, but this could sound like social activism. And the difference is that social practice art is when you actually set the conditions, you open up a space, you open up a time in which you set up these conditions in which you can start practicing the future and you can make things happen that you want to happen. And so social activism cannot set the conditions. It just goes out there, protests, sensitizes people and writes and reaches out, but it doesn't set the condition. It goes against a certain situation that is out there. And so, yeah. So I don't know if I can give you an example just to make things a little more practical, but I was thinking of, do you know about the legend of Biblio Bandido by Marisa Jan?
I do from your presentation.
Yeah.
Please tell us about it.
Right, and so basically she knew that there was illiteracy in this little rural place in Honduras, and she decided to, obviously she sold the idea to the community there, and they liked it, and so one gentleman there just how do you say, I don't know the word in English, but he became this bandido, sort of looking like Zorro, but not quite. Everything was sort of like kind of droopy and very cheaply made. And then he had a horse and then a hat and a cape, and he came in, and the children totally participated to this. You can call it farce, you can call it a game, play, whatever, but they totally went for it, and they were actually also scared. I mean, they knew that they were that thing wasn't really real. In real life, there are no bandidos that want you to write and to compose a piece of writing. But at the same time, they liked the idea, and so they accepted to go into that space and to live within that space and within that time, and be, not just pretend, but be the scared children. The bandido is coming, he wants us to write, and if we don't write something, each one of us, and we don't put it in that basket, we're going to be in real trouble, because he's going to come back and who knows what it's going to do to us. And so that's what I mean by setting the conditions and opening up that space and then making things happen.
So something that is not reactive, but proactive.
Yeah.
Creating the world in which we live.
Exactly. And so you practice the future because you know that, okay, in that rural place there was illiteracy, the school wasn't really happening, and so the conditions weren't really there, but you don't exactly react. You don't just protest. I mean, not the protesting, I don't want to take away from that, but you don't protest. You actually create a situation where, oh, okay, we can make it happen this way. It's one way to make it happen, and we can explore as far as we can go. And then, in fact, there was a part 2 to this legend, where I think it was Marisa herself that became a bandida with a light blue cape, sky blue cape, and a donkey. And she came in, and there was a follow-up, and the children again participated, and yeah. And then, okay, then there can be a segue. Like in her website, she says that this initiative has been done again in other rural areas in that area, and so I'm sure it helped, the illiteracy problem. But I don't see it as a social solution. Like, it doesn't start from like, okay, let's solve illiteracy in rural Honduras. It doesn't it doesn't work that way for artists or social practice artists. They just work with the conditions, and then they create, and go as far as it is possible to practice, to be proactive, as you say. Yeah. What are some of the challenges? Yeah, that
thank you.
social practice artists are facing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm sure there are many. I know that one is funding, and find a way to be funded. But I think I am a firm believer that in art, form and content have to balance, to find a balance. So if you go either too much toward form or too much toward content, it gets out of balance, and then it just doesn't work. And so in social practice art, I think maybe a basic challenge is to keep things balanced, and I think that's a big challenge, because on a daily basis you have to maybe ask yourself, am I doing like activism here? I'm going veering too much towards that, or is it like this thing like really really aesthetically pleasing, but the content is suffering? So I think even if it is social practice and it's not painting or sculpture, I think that balance is still very important there. Yeah. So what am I doing is this project that is called A&D social practice. So and social practice, and A&D is archive, network, direct action, social practice, and it is building a web platform where social practice artists, foundations that are interested and work in the social arena, scientists, technologists, NGOs, art institutions that have already a social practice program can all be on this web platform, represented both with their presence, a link to their website, and artists obviously with their projects, and a dynamic platform that will allow for research that can help the user connect aspects of projects or foundations or what have you that are maybe not so readily or obviously linked, if you want. So the aim is to make research really a rich experience, if you want. And the aim is to support social practice art, and also to allow for collaborations, obviously promote funding of social practice art projects, but allow these different forces also to come together, maybe for something that can be a further, down the line, something that usually artists initiate something. Their goal is not to transform society, meaning, like I won't be happy until that special social issue is completely resolved. That's not how they operate. They, as I said, they create a space and time and work within these settings that they have created. And then at some point the project ends and the artist starts to do something else. And but there are some seeds that have been planted, and so these other forces can come together and see the possibility maybe to go more heavily, with more funding, more forces, wider range. So it has that side too, but it definitely starts with supporting and promoting social practice work. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and this is a fellowship that I am doing for 01 in San Jose. How do I see it evolving in the future? Yeah, this is a big blank for me, because as we were saying before, there are examples starting in the 60s or maybe even earlier, certainly earlier, even in the 1800s, and they were not called social practice art. So it has been happening. It has been happening for a long time because it is proactive. So people take responsibility for their thoughts, their ideas, and they proactively make things happen. So my hope is that there will be more and more an understanding, a support, um, and therefore there will be more of it. So that's my general hope. And the other hope is that, as again, that balance, right? So I was talking to, do you know Superflex?
Yes.
Yeah. So they're here in Arizona these days. So we had nice chats, and one of them was telling me, Bjorn was telling me that social practice artists have to be careful not to over-represent themselves. So maybe this is more the challenge than the, what we see happen for the future. But because it is a challenge, I like it happened with traditional artists that started to get their resumes long with all these shows in galleries and museums. I gotta have another show, another one. Um, and things get out of kilter that way because where is the time that you spend with the project, really going deep and not repeating yourself or whatever. So anyway, that would be the same for a social practice artist who maybe keeps on posting stuff, and has a lot of posts of projects, but it's better to actually stay. So maybe fewer, but deeper. Yeah.